Hi, Ray here, and today we will take a look at the age of gamers and how they differ in their everyday life. So the video today is young gamers versus old gamers. So on this video we will take a detailed look at the old gamer's life and the young gamer's life, and after that we will look at their main differences, and after that we will see who is more addicted to games and around how much money they spend on games. And in the end we will see who is the best gamer. And before you say, who are you to decide what do young players do and what old players do? I am older than 20 and younger than 30, so I am in the middle of old and young gamers, and I have really young friends that I have met online and I play with them, and the same goes for older people. I met a lot of older people online that play games, so that is where I base my ideas. And without wasting more time, let's start with young versus old gamers, and let's start with young players. And here are all the people 18 and below. Well, they are mostly 18 and below, but honestly I consider everyone from 25 and below a young player. But the things I am about to say mostly apply for the people below 18. And what do the people here do? Well, they have school and sometimes they do some part-time work, but more times than not they just have school, that's it, nothing else. And when someone only has school and doesn't do good in school, you can guess where their time goes. Well, if you didn't guess already, they spend most of their time playing games. And why wouldn't they? I mean, let's be honest, if we had the whole day free, wouldn't we play all the day? Yeah, we're not that different. We just don't have that much free time on our hands, but that is beside the point. And these mostly play whatever is the most played game, and they hop from one game to another really frequently. They don't have a main game, but they enjoy every game. One time they are playing League of Legends, after that they might hop and play some Counter-Strike. After that they go for God knows what, maybe some Fortnite, and maybe you have seen a pattern here. They are all games that can run on cheap PCs and they all are free games. And that's not to say that they don't buy games, because they do. But let's say that the younger gamers have a limited budget, to say the least, and they have to spend their money wisely, so they won't just buy games. And why buy games when there are really good games for free? But since they have a lot of free time, and since they play a lot of games, because they have free time, they are really good at games that requires fast reflexes. And it has to do with age too, because the younger you are the faster your reflexes are, and with age, let's just say that your skills don't age like fine wine. And there are a lot of top players that are older, but in first-person shooter where reflexes are the main thing you need. Mostly the best teams are made with young players that are around 22 to 23, which isn't below 18. But still is under that 25-year gap that we mentioned before, and the main reason why these people play these games. Because like we said, they are free and there is no pay to win. And when I say there is no pay to win, I mean it doesn't matter how much money you have. You will not be able to pay money so your character has any advantage over the other players, and you will enjoy the game a lot more when the other players cannot kill you because they had money. And that is really good news when you are young without a job. That means without money. And when you don't have money, you need to play games where the money doesn't matter, so you feel better when playing games. You know it is better when everyone is playing by the same rules, that's a fact. But playing pay-to-win games is a lot of fun too. Honestly, it is a lot of fun. But for those games to be funny, you need to have money. You need to spend a lot of money on those games if you want to have fun. But the young player on most situations doesn't have money, so those games are out of reach. And now let's see what systems they use for their games. So they are smart people, so their system costs around $700, but they build their PC themselves with used parts on most times, so they save money. And I will not get into more detail about this PC here, because I have made a video on cheap and expensive PCs. So if you want to know more about that, feel free to go and watch that video. But for all the people who have watched it, I don't want to waste more of your time, so with that said, let's continue really quick what their PC can run. And their PC can do a lot. It can run all the latest games, and it can run all of the games we have mentioned, so they don't have any problem when it comes to playing games. And here we can see how much the gaming industry and technology has grown. Even on old and cheap hardware you still can play and do whatever you want. And with that said, let's take a look at the older generation. Let's take a look at the old gamers, and here we are talking about players that are around 30 and up, even though I consider the old players from 25 and up. But for the most part, the things I am about to say are mostly about people that are 30 years old or older. So here we have people that are a little more mature. Here we have people that have their life under control. I wouldn't say under control, but they know what they are doing with their life. They work, they win money on their own, and they spend the money however they want. But since they work, here we have people that have responsibilities. Here we have people that have wives. Here we have people that made other people. They have children. So what does that have to do with gaming? And it has to do a lot with gaming. I mean, if you have a job, it's not like school where you don't have to go, and even if you go you don't have to do anything. In the job you have to work, and you have to work a long time, and it takes time to go there and come from there. Plus, let's not forget, when it comes to this people, their wife needs attention, their kids need to spend time with their father, and you have to sleep, and their day is just 24 hours, so there are a lot to do. You don't have that much time to play. They play just a couple hours a day, and now let's see what kind of games they play. And since they don't have a lot of time to try and play games, they don't experiment a lot, and even if they experiment they will still play the games that they are used to playing more. And you can see that, for example, when it comes to old games like World of Warcraft, and there are young players here, but mostly the players here are around 30 years old and more, and there are a lot of other games, but we don't have time to get into those. These people don't really care about money when it comes to games, and when I say they don't care about money, I mean they don't care about some money. They don't care about subscriptions, they don't care if they buy the battle pass, and they have to do those things. They are not the players that spend money, so they have an advantage. They pay money for those things, so other players that are playing the game don't have an advantage over them. Let's be honest, we can cut them some slack. They work and they don't have time, so when they pay some money they don't have to grind, and they can have fun with us playing some games. They don't have time to grind, and by paying money they make the game survive, because the game needs money to keep those servers running, and they are the people that make that happen. The players we hate are whales. Here are the old people that have millions that log into the game and just buy everything in the game so they never lose. And even though they don't know what talent means, they still are the best. They are on the top of the leaderboards. Yeah, most of the time the whales are the old generations, but whales are far and few in between, and even the old generation doesn't like the pay-to-win system because they just don't have that much money to spend on a game, and in the end of the day they want to be equal to the other players too. And they play free-to-play games too, and they play the new games as well, but they just don't play those games as much. They stay to one game, and they play the games when the companies that they trust makes those games. Because they have to be picky with the games they play, because they don't have time to spend on any game. And with that said, let's see how their system looks. And since they have a bigger budget when it comes to buying the PC, they will have a better system, but in most times they have more or less the same system, because they do spend a lot of money on their system, but they buy the system pre-built. And that's why they spend a lot more money, maybe around $1,500, but they don't search for good deals, and they just want to buy a PC and play on that PC. That's at the end of the story. They don't have time to do anything more, and they spend $1,500 on a $700 system, so they spent more money. But since they aren't people with millions, they will not spend more than what they have to, and that's why their system is like that, but they are still happy because their system does everything they want to do. And one more thing about the older players, they don't want to play games that require them to have really fast reflexes, because that requires a long time to play to get good at, and they want a game that requires some thinking and requires something that isn't just muscle memory. So they don't want something that is pure talent, and they don't want to play things that are just lucky or pay to win, so it's something in between, and that's all when it comes to the older players. And with that said, let's move on and see what are the differences between the two of them. And now again, let's start with the young gamers, and the main difference here is that the young gamer spends more time on games. We already said that, but the other difference is that they mostly play games that require some kind of fast reflexes, and the reason for that is simple. It makes the game more interesting, and it gives you more excitement when the whole game can end in a second, and that gives you some adrenaline. That is not to say that they don't play other games that are slower or turn-based, but they don't play those games as much. They want to go in a game and start playing it until someone wins, and the other difference is that they are cheap. They will cut corners wherever they can. And with that said, now let's move on and see what are the differences at the older generation. And here they have other things that they have to do, so for those reasons they spend less time playing games. And now let's move on to how much money they spend. And here we can see that they have spent a lot more money when it comes to games, and there are a lot of people who play subscription-based games. That means they pay every month to play the same game. And okay, the game has a lot of updates, but they pay every month for that. And the other thing is, they play games differently. They think a lot before starting and playing a game. Because when it comes to younger gamers, when they see a game they will just start playing that, and if they like the game, great, if not, good. And now let's move on to the next one. But the older generation has a limited amount of hours to play, so they cannot just try every game. They have to be picky, so they can at least play some good games. And that's almost all of the differences, but the other differences are minor, so they are not even worth mentioning. And now let's see who is more addicted to games. And you might think that the younger generation players are more addicted since they play more hours. since they spend more time in the games, since they play more variety games. But in my honest opinion, the older generation players are more addicted to games. And just hear me out before you flip the table. I mean, the older generation does play games rarely. They don't have more time to spend playing games, and that is the reason why. Just think about it for a second. He has a wife, he has a job, he has kids, and he still plays games every chance he gets. But if we see the younger generation, the only reason they play games is because they are bored and they don't have anything better to do. That's the whole reason. And who is the best player, the young player or the old player? And does it really matter? We are all the best, we are still all gamers. Let's just pick an online game and play together again. And with that said, this was Ray. If you liked the video, like; if you didn't, dislike. If you want to see more videos like this and more tech related videos, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This was Ray and I will see you in the next one.